Welcome to the Soar podcast, the place for creative entrepreneurs with limitless dreams and unconventional stories. I'm your host, Ray Hyde Cornell, founder and business mentor at Chiron Consulting and CEO and senior copywriter at Cornell Content Marketing. My goal is to bring you stories of what's possible so you can never tell yourself that your dreams are impossible. All right, so welcome to the Soar podcast. Today we have Kinsey Phelps of Blue Table Design, and Kinsey is the only designer that I will trust with both of my brands. She does all of our social graphics, all of our PDFs. She makes everything beautiful, and she is my go-to girl for all things pretty. So, Kinsey, tell us a little bit about your business and what you do, because I know you do so much outside of working for Cornell and Chiron.
Yeah. So my business is called Blue Table Design, and I started that in 2015. I do website design, general graphic design, and social media design for businesses and agencies. And yeah, like I said, I've been doing that since 2015. I've created about 25 websites now, and I have managed probably 6 or 7 different social media accounts, and then have just been doing a bunch of other marketing work as well.
And that's a lot for an individual, because, oftentimes we think of, okay, so big businesses, they have thousands of customers or thousands of clients per month, but us as freelancers, really don't need that much. I mean, if you're a solopreneur, if you're going it alone and you don't have a huge team and you don't have a lot of overhead or anything like that, oftentimes you need like anywhere from 1 to 5, maybe 6 clients a month, depending on what your services are and your pricing and your financial goals. And so for you to manage that many accounts and build that many websites, and I know you do like ongoing maintenance for those as well, that's quite a lot.
Yeah. It can be. And thankfully, I have a good network, good support system around me to help with that. But that hasn't always been the case. I'm just now to a place in my business where I feel confident about the future and hopeful. And I have some strategy in place and some plans and things like that. Yeah. Whereas when I first started out, I was just, I just kind of jumped in.
So tell me about that. Tell me about that jumping in process, because your professional background is actually very diverse. You were a teacher, you were in marketing at an actual like in-house position, and you've done a lot of different roles. So how did you get to the point where you said, you know what, I don't want to be a W-2 employee anymore. I'm ready to go out on my own and I want to freelance and I want to build my own business?
Yeah. Well, I was teaching at the time, like you mentioned. And my career path has been really windy and crazy. And I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. That's just me. But I was teaching at the time, and I had just moved school districts. My husband and I had just gotten married. We got married in the middle of a school year. And as a teacher, I don't know what I was thinking. Again, but I'll tell you, put that on my headstone someday. What was I thinking? Here she lies. What was I thinking? But anyway, so we got married in the middle of the year in December. I had taken on a lot of projects for the wedding that were creative. Like I created our wedding website, and I'd always done some freelance things on the side for people. And my husband had always kind of urged me this direction. And I had thought that it was a little too risky, but he is an enthusiast. If he decides something's a good idea, if he decides he likes someone, if he decides he likes a certain sports team, he's going to root them on till the bitter end. So I always had him in my corner, kind of nudging me along. So that was really helpful in making the jump. And I mean, while we're on that topic, there's a lot of discussion about, the jump, the leap that freelancers make going from part-time to full-time. And for me, I don't want to put on any airs here. Like, it wasn't really it wasn't like leaping off a cliff like it is for a lot of other business owners, you know, with no safety net where they just go for it. For
Yeah.
me, I liken it more to like getting on a roller coaster because I was married, you know,
Yeah.
I knew that the lights were going to stay on. I knew that we were going to have food to eat. So yeah, a roller coaster where you have a seatbelt, it's been tested. It's going to be a little scary, but it's mainly fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it stretched us financially at times? Yes. Has it made a lot of our goals as a couple a little more slow going? Yes, definitely. But in the end, I just had nothing but support. So it was a pretty easy decision for
Yeah.
me to go full time.
It's
So
interesting that you weren't the risk taker in the situation. You were
yeah,
actually the one who was like, I don't know about this. I'm hesitant to jump
exactly.
in. And Chess was the one who was actually pushing you forward.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So like I said, it wasn't that scary. I was just excited to make the leap. I'm kind of that type as a creative. I like new things. And I was excited about taking on something new and doing what I always had wanted to do from the beginning. You know, if I had trusted my intuition when I was 18 and figuring out my path in college,
Yeah.
then I would have been doing this all along. But I got a little scared um, of just pursuing an art degree. And I can say just pursuing an art degree. It's a big deal. But I was nervous about that. You know, I remember when I researched the program here at the university that I chose, Texas Tech here in Lubbock. I learned that you can minor in anything. And at that time, I thought you needed a minor. You know, little did I know, who cares? Like nobody cares what you minor in, really. I mean, it does diversify your coursework, and that's what I was trying to do. But it definitely scared me off from staying on that path that I wanted to be on from the beginning.
That's really interesting. And that's actually a part of your story that I didn't know, that when you were 18, you were actually considering going
Yeah,
into the arts and graphic design. And I think your path is one that a lot of freelancers can resonate with. I mean, that was certainly my path. I did the exact same thing where
yeah,
I had always had a passion for writing. I minored in creative writing, but my bachelor's degree was in psychology. And then I
right.
went down the path to getting my license to become a prison counselor. And now I'm back here writing again in both businesses. So it's something that, it's funny that you said that if you had trusted your intuition when you were 18, you would have started this path earlier on. But I'm
Yeah.
wondering if there was something along that journey that you had to learn before you were actually ready to go on to be a freelancer and a self-employed business owner.
Yeah, I'm sure there were lots of things that I had to learn. I mean, like I said, my path has been really windy and I've done a lot of different things, from teaching. I did get my initial job. So my degree that I decided upon was advertising with a minor in marketing, as so many of us at that time in 2007 graduated with. And I did get a job in the advertising division of a newspaper in Houston Chronicle. And quickly I realized, oh, wow, again, what was I thinking? Like, this is way more sales. It's 99% sales. And
Yeah.
that is never anything that I wanted to do. I had always wanted to be on the creative side and hoped that there was some type of role in advertising that would allow me to somehow be creative, but yet not be a graphic designer. I don't know. Again, don't know what I was thinking, but I am really proud of that move and that job because I moved down to Houston. I didn't know many people there, and it ended up being a good experience. I had great bosses, a couple of coworkers that I thought were really cool, and just explored that city away from home. And but I think it was 2009 when all of the newspapers across the nation started really hurting,
Yeah.
and they laid off tons of people. My apartment lease was up, and I just kind of thought, maybe it's time to pack it up and go home. So I did. I moved back to Amarillo, where my parents had relocated at the time. And that's when I fell into teaching, because I've always loved kids, and I'd always wanted to, I was always interested in teaching. I come from a dad who's a school administrator, and had always been in the school business, as we say. So, yeah, I was interested in that, and I took a job as a teaching assistant in the Head Start program with 3-year-olds. So, yeah, which was really fun, really, really fun, and that's how I wound up in teaching ultimately, just because there weren't a lot of advertising opportunities for a new girl in town.
Yeah.
Like, I knew no one in Amarillo. So,
And was that your last job before you decided to go full freelance?
Teaching. Yeah. I pursued my alternative teaching certification. In Texas and in other states, they have programs where they assess what your coursework that you did in college to see what you're qualified to teach. And then you take a few classes. I did a semester of student teaching, and then I got my certification, and I taught for 3 years in various elementary grade levels and subject areas. And I loved it. I really did. I didn't take leaving teaching lightly, because I feel so passionately about it. And I just like kids. I just think if you are in a space where you need to be present in life, go hang out with the kid. Like, they don't know how to be anything but present and in the moment, and they're so innocent and they're so pure. And I think that we need good teachers to nurture and protect our future. So I didn't take it lightly, but honestly, the amount of time I was spending working commensurate with the salary, I mean, it just stopped making sense for me and my family.
Yeah.
So,
and then from there, when did you move back down to Lubbock? Because I'm trying to think of, how did you get from leaving your teaching career to where we met, which was working at the co-working space together?
Right. So Chess and I met in Amarillo when I was there after I moved back from Houston. And then his job brought him back here to Lubbock, which was a no-brainer for both of us, because we had both gone to school here. We didn't know each other in school, but we'd both gone to school here. We're big tech sports enthusiasts, so it made sense for us to come back here. He proposed in May, so the end of my second year of teaching in Amarillo, and I moved down here to Lubbock that following fall, after I got a job that summer teaching. And we got married that December. And so, I was in Lubbock, basically, to answer your question. That's a long way to arrive at the answer, but I had moved back to Lubbock after we got engaged.
Yeah. And then how long were you guys married before you made the decision to leave teaching?
4 months. 4 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that year you got married was actually your last year of teaching.
My last year of teaching. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, like I said, I was doing I'd always just done creative work for people on the side, event invitations and things like that, a little bit of website stuff here and there. And it just made sense. After I was doing all the creative work that we did for the wedding as well, I think Chess saw how happy that made me. Although it's a stressful time. Like, let's be honest.
Oh, God, yeah. Just planning a wedding.
Oh, I'm doing all of this DIY stuff and it's just great. But it was fun. And so, honestly, when I first started my business, I was going to focus on event invitations and stationery. I was blue table design and stationer.
Yeah.
And, I've always loved a handwritten note. I love getting beautiful invitations in the mail. I think it's kind of, it's a nice throwback to a simpler time when you get old fashioned things in the mail. I love that. So I was going to do that. And I had an Etsy store and I was making a few sales, but then my father-in-law approached me about revamping his website and doing some marketing materials for him, for his engineering firm in Austin. And so I started doing that work and I loved it. And I thought, I'm looking at the revenue that my invitations were bringing in versus the revenue that a website was bringing in, and recurring revenue at that. And I thought, maybe I need to pivot a little bit here. So I started focusing more on websites and the work that I do now.
Yeah.
Although I wasn't as organized, my offerings weren't as streamlined. I didn't know what I was doing. I just sort of I would have sales calls back then and just say, all right, what do you need? Oh, sure. Yes, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. Get off the phone and then stress out over pricing for hours. It was really kind of, I was flying by the seat of my pants at that point. But I knew that focusing on websites instead of invitations and stationery was probably a good route to take. So,
yeah, especially with the trajectory of the market and everyone going digital, and even brick and mortar businesses needing websites. I mean, you did a lot of work for local restaurants and things like that, building their websites and building their social media profiles and things like that. And then I remember shortly after we met, well, very shortly after we met, you ended up taking a leave from your business because you had a baby girl.
Yes.
And tell me what that was like, because I feel like you went through, I feel like you're such a good example of the freelancing journey, because a lot of these things that we freelancers tend to kick ourselves for, you also experienced, but at least from my outward perception, you didn't kick yourself over it. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. I was flying by the seat of my pants. I was stressing over pricing, things like that. But you took those as opportunities to learn and grow, and you never held yourself back from actually doing it. That's what I love about your story, is you had no idea how to price yourself. You had no idea what packages you wanted to offer. You had no idea what your future of your business was going to look like, but you just knew that this was the right path. And luckily you had the encouragement of your husband, and you went into it. And then partway into your journey, you end up having a baby, which is another thing that a lot of female freelancers think, oh my God, I've got to have the business up to this level, and I've got to, have this amazing structure that I can rely on and let the business run on autopilot while I'm on maternity leave and all of those things. But that wasn't your experience. You didn't go into maternity leave having this perfectly designed plan. You were just living in the moment and making the best decisions that you could for yourself at the time. And you took every opportunity to learn from each of those experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried, and that's not to say that it hasn't been without its ups and downs. So after I made the jump, and I was working, we decided to make another jump and start a family.
Yeah.
And that process just wasn't straightforward for us. I was able to get pregnant, but I wasn't able to stay pregnant. And we had a couple of losses that really threw me, well, of course it threw me for a loop, but it also threw the business for a loop. I was officing at home. I wasn't seeing a lot of people. I wasn't handling it well at all. And I had a client who I was really close to, that I think I had missed a deadline or something, and we were talking, and I ended up sharing with her what was going on. And she said, her personality is so sweet and so kind, and so I have so much respect for her, and I was expecting some really loving words and some patting, and she didn't do that. She said, Kinsey, you've got to get up and you've got to throw yourself into this work. You cannot let a situation like this basically ruin all of the work that you've done so far. And I think back to that, and I'm really appreciative of that, because she was right. And luckily around that time, I learned about Hub City Workspace. And just totally random came up on my Facebook feed. And so I got an office there, and that was really helpful to just get out of the house and focus on my work and throw myself into that. And so, that's when you and I met.
Yeah.
And eventually we were able to have a successful pregnancy a few years into the process, and not a few years, I guess 2. And so, yeah, now we have Cameron, and I'll never forget the week that I left Hub City Workspace. I told the owner, Jacob, and some other guys that office there, like, all right, I'll see you guys in 4 weeks. And I remember Jacob kind of looking at, I mean, he didn't say anything, he didn't argue with me, but he has kids of his own, and he was kind of like, okay. Well, I didn't actually darken the door of Hub City Workspace again for like 4 months.
Yeah.
And that was to move my stuff out, to move my office home, because it just, again, what was I thinking? I don't know. But she was going to sleep. You know, what do newborns do? They sleep. Well, they sleep, but when do you sleep?
Yeah.
When do you get out of your bathrobe? Like, I mean, it just, it wouldn't have worked. And that particular location was open air. And I mean, what am I going to do? Fire up the breast pump in my office while I'm like,
when you can hear everything in the cubicle next to you.
Everything, like that, just, it wasn't going to work. So I moved my office back home and started trying to figure out what to do. You know, Chess and I did have to have a come to Jesus meeting about 5 months in, where he was like, all right, what are you going to do? Are you going to make this work? Or are you going to put her in daycare and either go back to teaching or find work at an agency? And I decided to try to make this work. Luckily, I have a good friend who kind of nudged me along as far as getting Cameron into a Parents Day Out program. And that's made all the difference. Like, she's been going since she was 6 months old, and that's turned into 4 days a week from 9 to 2:45. So I'm able to actually work. And I haven't felt guilty about it. Luckily, I'm really thankful for that as well. She's never looked back. There's been maybe one day when she's whined a little bit when I've dropped her off, but she's happy. She likes getting out of the house and playing for a few
little
hours.
social butterfly.
Yes, for sure. So it has allowed me to focus on the business more. And around the time that I got her into Parents Day Out is when you and I we reconnected and started working together with Cornell. And then that lent itself to me learning about what you do with Kyron. And that it's all just kind of come together. And the work that we've done together in Kyron has really helped me feel the way that I do now about growing my business. So.
And what is that feeling that you have about growing your business?
That I have the capacity to take on more new clients, that I have a set schedule that I try to adhere to every day for work. I think a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck in the idea of just having to work constantly. For me, it was fear of failing is what motivated me to, I always refer to it as working like my hair's on fire. That refers to a teaching book that I got. This should have been my first clue that teaching wasn't really going to be that cushy for me. But it's a book called Teach Like Your Hair's on Fire. It's really popular. And I know it's speaking to like being passionate about your teaching, but I apply that to, I mean, how long can your hair stay on fire? It's not gonna be good. It's going to burn down. It's going to hurt. Like, that is how I was working. Before you and I got together and started working on Kyron. You know, any spare moment I had, I felt like I needed to be working. I wasn't fully present ever. I mean, I was like a duck on the water, you know, like just swimming, but paddling like hell underneath. That's what I was doing. And in my free time, I was reading professional books. So there was just no time for just downtime.
And to just be you and to just be a mom and just be a wife.
Exactly. Exactly.
I feel like you went through so many huge hallmark lessons of the freelance journey in such a short amount of time. I mean, to kind of take you back a little bit, what was it like for you when you got a office space? I mean, what did that do to your sense of confidence, your sense of operations, your business structure, your business schedule? What did that do for you as a freelancer?
I mean, it took me, of course, I was going through some things personally, like I
Yeah.
mentioned at the time, but it was just nice to feel like I had an actual office, and I
Yeah.
didn't have, the dryer going off and
Mm.
running to go fold clothes, or I wasn't tempted to catch up on some trash reality TV
Yeah.
during my lunch break. I felt like a real working human at
Mm.
that time, and I know that that's not the right choice for everyone in every situation. Like I
Yeah.
said, right now, this is my dining room, and that's just the way that it needs to be right now for this season. But
Yeah.
eventually, I would love to get back into an office space, a dedicated office space where I'm not tempted to, get up and clean the fingerprints off the window or whatever
Yeah.
while I'm working.
Yeah. And it's funny because before we started this episode, before we started the show, you and I were talking about the old days of being
Yeah.
in the co-working space and some of the conversations we would overhear, and
Oh, for sure.
someone like overfilling the coffee machine and it's just
Yeah.
making a mess and sputtering, or someone leaving it on and it's burning, or, people are doing God knows what in the bathroom.
Yes. For
Just,
sure.
a lot of people think that, oh, I'll go get an office and I'll be free of all these distractions. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that is a benefit of getting an office space, or even going to just a co-working space where you have one of those, freely available desks or something like that. But at the same time, there were plenty of distractions within the co-working
There
space
were.
as well.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
sometimes they were really welcome distractions.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
my
They were, I
office
mean,
was,
I did miss,
sorry, the
sorry,
audio
I'm
cut out
talking
for a
over
second.
you.
No, what did you
I
say?
know. Yeah, I had missed just office,
Mm-hmm.
just being part of an office,
Yeah.
the office life a little bit. So that was really fun. I liked being around people again, but I
Yeah.
also loved being able to shut the door
Mm-hmm.
in the office. It's best of
Oh, yeah.
both worlds, really.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
if you
And
wanted to chit chat about the weather with someone, you could, but then you could go away to your office, shut the door.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think I got the most value out of being in the co-working space was the connections. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm still friends on Facebook with everybody there. And now the couple who runs an insurance agency out of Hub City Workspace, there are insurance agents and they've saved us so much money, not to sound like a Geico commercial, but
Yeah.
also you and I connected, and
Yes.
Jacob Hubick is amazing and so connected in the community. And he's
Yeah.
been just a wealth of knowledge and, interpersonal connections and things like that. It really opened a lot of doors for us to kind of get out of our bubbles for a while
Absolutely.
and reconnect with that working world. And
Yes.
now both of us are actually back at home now.
Mhm.
So, what was the transition like for you, and how have you tried to maintain that sense of professionalism and I'm an official business owner, and how do you shut your doors, so to speak, at
Yeah.
home now?
Well, really, I keep going back to this schedule thing, which is so not me. I mean, as we talked about, it's not me. It's not in my personality to be really disciplined with a schedule and a plan and things like that. But
Yeah.
it's almost like I think of it as like a cure for the right brained, like the right brain type creative person. Um, it helps me settle down. And basically I have a schedule. To answer your question, I don't even try to work when I'm not during my schedule. If Cameron's home, I don't even try. My computer is shut because I'm not being present for her. I'm not doing good work. It really just lends itself to frustration from me. So I just adhere to that schedule. And as far as feeling like a real business person, I don't know, things like this where I actually get dressed that helps me feel like a real business person. But unfortunately, that's just where I'm gonna have to be for a while I have little ones around,
Yeah.
a little one
Yeah.
around.
And that's the next thing that I wanted to ask you about was how have you transitioned from solopreneur, main focus is building this business, to now mom, main focus is growing this little human and keeping her safe and happy. And then as she's gotten older, trying to balance those two priorities of, okay, I still have to build this business and, support my family's finances. And I also still have this little human to take care of.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile that?
Honestly, I'm just doing my best every day.
Yeah.
I'm just taking it one day at a time as far as that goes. But I'll say, I think back to that time when I was supposed to be just focused on building my business. I wasn't. I wasn't very focused. I didn't know where things were headed. But having Cameron has helped me with that focus. Like, it's changed everything. I want to do this now more than ever because of the freedom that it affords me with her, or the freedom that it gives me with her and her schedule, and the things that I can do for my family with a role like this.
Yeah.
So, it's weird for it to work like that. When I had a lot more time and I had a lot more resources for myself, I wasn't as focused. But now that she's here, I've kind of ratcheted things up to be more successful now.
Would you say that you are the type of person who works well under pressure?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So now the pressure of raising a little one is really kind of kicking your butt into gear.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And what fascinates me is after you had your daughter, you not only went back to building Blue Table, but you built a second business. You have another business called the Busy Baby Company.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that, and how did that come to be in the midst of what already to me seems like a very full plate of being a freelance graphic designer, managing all these clients, and having a baby girl?
Yeah. Well, she is like most kids, and she likes her toys that light up and bing, bing, bong, sing to her, but only for a minute. The things that when she was younger, and even now that she's 2, the things that keep her attention are things that aren't necessarily traditionally toys, like latches and, um, the little, what's it called? The door stopper thing that goes boing, 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 boing.
Oh yeah, the spring, the stopper spring.
Yes, that's her favorite. That was her favorite thing. And so I started researching, and it was something on Pinterest, like these little busy boards that are a bunch of latches and things like that, basically put on a board for kids to play with. And instead of buying one, I wanted to make one. Well, it was a really big hit, and I posted her playing with it on social media, and I had a lot of messages from friends and family saying, "Oh my gosh, where did you get that board? Like, I love that. I would give that as a gift, blah, blah, blah." So that was in my head. And then, COVID-19 lockdown occurred, and I had a little more time at home, and I just started prototyping, as the technical term is, and set up an Etsy store and started selling these boards. And they're based on Montessori principles. I wasn't a teacher in a Montessori school, but I've always, for that age group, preschool, young elementary, I love the guiding principles of Montessori education. I like them a lot. So that's what it's based upon. And I've been doing that. I could do more with Busy Baby Company for sure, and I am open to that in the future. But right now, I turned into a toy factory at this time, and the only time I have allocated to work on them is when Cameron is asleep. So after 7 p.m. And it's kind of wild around here to have
Yeah.
both dogs in, husband home, people over, possibly, and cranking out 4 busy boards in the middle of the floor.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wouldn't say it's back burner, but it's definitely like a side thing that I'm doing that I've enjoyed it a lot. But again, I probably need to put some systems in place, maybe get some help cranking those bad boys out.
Yeah. Well, and one thing, so most of what you and I talk about is Blue Table and how to
Yeah.
build your design business. But we did talk briefly about Busy Baby Company and how to price your boards. And
Right.
one of the things that I remember that I said to you was, you've got to increase your prices. People on
Yeah.
Etsy will pay crazy high prices for things that they know are handmade. The Montessori concept, that demands big bucks. And you really resisted raising your prices for a while. And
Yeah.
then at some point, what was that tipping point for you? Because you did raise the prices and they're still selling like crazy.
Yeah. It was Christmas. Christmas
Mm,
being, an elf in Santa's workshop in the living room floor with everything else that goes on during Christmas. I thought, okay, I still like making these. But I think something's got to give here, and I've got to increase the prices so that I feel good about the level of care that I take when I create them all.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. What was that internal process like for you? Was it relatively easy or was it kind of a struggle, especially as a creative, pricing something that you're making with your hands, which a lot of us, we think, oh, these are easy for me to make, or, oh, this just comes naturally, or, oh, I like making these, so I shouldn't charge as much. So what was that like for you?
I mean, it was easy. Like I said,
Yeah.
it was a lot at Christmas time, and there have been some spurts. I don't know if it was the ads that I was running at the time or what, but there have been some other times where I've had like 4 or 5 to make in a week, and I guess just fearing burnout, I guess,
Yeah.
was part of the rationale there. Plus, you had mentioned to me that I should raise my prices. Plus, my husband is always a fan of raising my prices.
Good.
It wasn't that tough of a decision, but it is one that I had to come to myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ultimately you had to be comfortable with it. And it sounds like
Yeah.
that realization of, if I continue on this path
Right.
at this rate, I'm going to burn out.
Right.
And that dynamic of just raising your prices, you still were doing about the same amount of work and you just raised your prices on that. That goes to show just how much of an energetic exchange our rates as freelancers really are, because it's not just, oh yeah, this thing comes easy to me and I like making it, which, not to say that the busy boards are easy. I've seen them. They're very intricate and you take a lot of care to polish and perfect and smooth them so they're safe for kiddos, but you enjoy them. And a lot of us think when we're early in our creative careers that, oh, if I enjoy doing this, I shouldn't charge very much. It's fun for me. Oh, I'll just charge a little bit of money. But you got to that point where you realized, if it's going to stay fun, I needed to increase the prices. And that is that direct connection between what we're getting paid and what we're actually putting out.
Right. I agree. Yeah. I also, I'm practical in general. The idea of paying a certain amount for a child's toy, that really gave me pause as far as wanting to raise the prices. But I just had to, like you said, I had to reconcile like the amount of work that I'm putting into it and the quality of what it is. And that helped me. So yeah, prices are higher and things are still selling, not as much, but that's okay. I'm okay with that.
So one thing that I wanted to go back to, which was at the very beginning, and this is the last question I'll ask you, about sales. So you mentioned that you would hop on a phone call and your sales calls were basically you saying, what do you need? Oh, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. And I think that's so common again, for beginner freelancers, when we're just kind of feeling our way through this whole world of, I have this skill, I don't know what it looks like. I can do a lot of things, but I don't know what people want.
Yeah.
How did your sales calls and your sales process evolve from that, what do you need, call to today?
Yeah, I wish I had a tried and true formula that I could pass along to a brand new freelancer and say, here's how you figure it out. But for me, it was just experience, talking to business owners and figuring out what it is that they want. Um, that helped me figure out what to offer. And then you and I got together in one of our Chiron calls, and we just straight up laid out my most popular services and set a price. And I created a one-sheeter that I can now send to people. I sent it out today. I sent 2 out yesterday. I mean, that has been a key thing for me. It has taken the stress out of like him hawing around what they want this, but they want this. It's nice to just have something to refer to. That's a baseline. I mean, and I always say this list is not exhaustive. I can add many other services. There are things that we can do to make things more custom for you, but here is a starting point. And I mean, yeah, it's huge for me.
And I remember one of the steps that we went through in helping you narrow down that sheet was, what do you actually enjoy doing?
Right.
Because you were doing all sorts of things for businesses that you didn't really like, the things that you were designing you weren't super crazy about. And so we figured out what you enjoy doing the most. And those are the ones that made it onto that one sheet, the ones that you enjoyed, the ones that were the most profitable. And yeah, you can always say, if you get in the door with a client with the stuff that you really love and that you feel is worth your time and energy for the money, once you build that relationship with the client, then you can always say, oh, hey, I noticed that you guys are doing this. Do you need help with that design? Or they will come to you and say the same thing. Hey, we're putting together this presentation. Do you do slide decks by chance? Oh, yeah, I do that. And here's how much I would charge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's so much better for me. I mean, I was at a point, like I said, I would be on a sales call. So it was either in person or on the phone. And then I would take all the information they needed, come home, decide on pricing, create a proposal, because I'm a creative type. I probably recreated my proposal every time I sent it out because I thought it could be better each time, so it was exhausting. Yeah. Just getting my foot in the door. Mm-hmm. And now I have this one sheet that again, it doesn't outline everything that I do, but it's a starting point. Yeah. And that, like I said, that's been huge for me. So yeah.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, Kinsey, thank you so much for being here, and tell us, where can people check out you and your businesses?
If you go to bluetabledesign.com, you can see my past and current work. And if there's a project that you are interested in discussing, you can book a call directly from a link on, my contact page.
Perfect. And the Busy Baby Co. is on Etsy, right?
Etsy, yes.
Yes. Love it. Thank you so much, Kinsey.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hey, it's Ray again. Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, please subscribe and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, YouTube, and more. And want to be a guest on the show or know someone who has an amazing story of entrepreneurship? Apply on our website at www.chironconsulting.us/podcast.